Amefanya vizuri. Amefungua Nairobi na amefungua Mombasa. Very good. That was the feeling amongst a vast majority of Kenyans as the president a few hours ago lifted the cessation of movement directive placed upon Nairobi, the capital of Kenya, and Mombasa, the second largest city in Kenya. And some people were even talking about celebrations. But hold on a minute. This thing is far from being over. The 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. curfew was extended for another 30 days. It definitely ain't over. Even the president on his speech issued a warning. He said that the situation was under review for the next 21 days. And if need be, lockdowns would be instituted again. He underlined it all with his words, cautious optimism. Now, amid all this, there are those Kenyans who are getting very confused. And I'm talking about those Kenyans who still take the time to think logically about these COVID manenos. Because on the surface of things, this should have been a straightforward decision. The country cannot take the lockdowns any longer. That is very clear right across the board. But even more important is a point that somebody brought up. And it is this. When we lock down the country, there are only a handful of cases. But now, we want to open up the country when we have over 8,000 cases. Doesn't make sense. Well, my response to that is that there's very little, in fact I can't think of anything, linked to this crisis that makes sense. As we have said on this channel enough times, there are just too many unanswered questions. But what I found super interesting is the fact that this decision was agonized over up to the very last minutes. Oh yes. About an hour before the president's scheduled address to the nation, there were reports that he was still in a meeting, and the agenda was this decision made today, which some people interpreted as being a bad sign. A bad sign as in the restrictions, especially the cessation of movement for Mombasa and Nairobi would not be lifted. Which tempts me to speculate that the president probably had two speeches prepared. The speech that he ended up giving and the speech that he did not give. That extended the restrictions, specifically the Nairobi and Mombasa one. Yet another telltale clue was that as the president began his speech, he glanced at his watch. Now think about it. When you arrive for a meeting, and the first thing you do is glance at your watch, what does it mean? It usually means, gosh, how late am I for this meeting? But there's another much more important clue that I want us to pounce on. The president mentioned the National Security Council. He said after consultations with the National Security Council, he had arrived at the decision that he was announcing. Now, for those who may not know, the National Security Council has got nothing to do with health issues. It is not under the Ministry of Health. If I can use just a few words to describe to you what it is, the National Security Council is the pulse of the nation called Kenya. And apart from the president and his deputy, this all-important council has all the top bosses of all Kenya's security organs on the board. including the National Intelligence Service. Indeed, the council, according to the Constitution, is supposed to be an oversight over the National Intelligence Service. Now, to cut to the chase, what I'm trying to say is that at the end of the day, this decision boiled down to security issues rather than health issues. Because in any country, the key question would be, can we keep up the lockdowns for another 21 days or 30 days? Well, if you took the time to walk out of your gated community house somewhere in leafy Lavington and mingled with ordinary wananchi, just for a few minutes, you'd realize that the answer to that question is an emphatic no. No, it would not have been possible to sustain the cessation of movements in Nairobi and Mombasa. And there are many reasons. But top on the list is the fact that that move alone greatly disrupted the Kenyan economy. Nairobi is the capital. And Hezron has often been reminding me in recent days, pesa yote inatoka Nairobi. And Mombasa is the port of entry, and a very important commercial city, supporting a huge number of businesses right across the country who supply to Mombasa, who do business with Mombasa. Now, although there's a huge sigh of relief right across the country, I believe, in my view, many Kenyans are not prepared for what is about to happen or what will happen next. You see, the perception amongst too many Kenyans is that sasa pesa itarudi. Money will magically start flowing in the Kenyan economy. This is the perception. And of course, it's wrong. The damage done to the Kenyan economy cannot be repaired by simply easing the restrictions or lifting the cessation of movement order on Nairobi and Mombasa. No, it will take a much longer time, much more effort to be even able to start reviving our economy. And that is a fact. It is common knowledge that to destroy something will take you seconds, but to build it will take a long time. You can destroy a house with a fire in a matter of minutes, or an hour or so. But to build that house could take you over 1 year. And so, one wonders what will happen when this dawns on Kenyans. When that man who has not had a job at a construction site and was clinging on to the hope that when restrictions are eased, he'll be able to go back to that construction site and find a job. What will happen when they find out the truth? When they realize that nothing is happening at that construction site, despite the easing of restrictions? What will happen to that Kenyan who was hanging onto that hope that if he can get to Mombasa from Nairobi, his life will magically improve, only to arrive in Mombasa and find that maybe things are worse in Mombasa than they were in Nairobi? Or vice versa. Somebody in Mombasa who believes that getting to Nairobi will improve things for him personally. I'm afraid that all indications are that the next thing that will happen is hopelessness. Those people are clinging on to that hope that if this happens, something good will happen to them, will completely lose hope. And I don't need to tell you that that is a very dangerous situation for any country. And there's something else happening. Kenyans want to dig deeper into these virus manenos. Or can I call them virus politics? There's somebody who has been very busy on social media spreading propaganda. Or shall I say, selling to Kenyans the danger of this virus. Now, unfortunately, Kenyans have not purchased it. At least a significant number of Kenyans have not purchased that propaganda. Indeed, what has developed is a very interesting scenario where Kenyans are extremely worried, not about the virus. They're extremely worried about their livelihoods, about putting food on the table. Maybe this is best illustrated by a conversation I overheard amongst ordinary folks just a few hours ago. Hawa wazungu wachane na sisi. Mwafrika kuna shida nyingi sana. Wacha maugonjwa, tuko na shida nyingi sana. Pesa, hakuna kazi, corruption kwa serikali, pesa yetu inakulwa na watu wa siasa. Tuko na shida nyingi sana. Kwa hivyo tukipanga shida yetu 1, 2, 3, 4, hii virus itakuwa number 100. Tuko na shida nyingi sana. And of course, what will now happen is that number 1 on the list of hizi shida za Wakenya is going to be putting food on the table. The prices of food items, basic food items, are on the rise, if you can find them. And don't forget, many farmers obeyed the instructions from the government to stay at home, to stay away from the farm. And then, of course, there are those farmers who are locked in either Nairobi or Mombasa. And also the disruption to supply chains brought about by these restrictions. When you put all those factors together, it's very predictable what we're going to witness next. You know, one of the reasons why this was a very tough and difficult decision for the president to make, and indeed the government to make, is contained in my weekly intelligence briefings, number 35, which explains why we are not out of the woods. Indeed, we are not even in the woods. You know, when you reach the woods, then you're sure you're almost out. We have not even reached the woods. Now, that is a weekly intelligence briefings I highly recommend. And you can see details on your screens right now on how you can get hold of it and indeed become a member of my briefs. In my view, and I know this is not good news, what we have gone through so far has been the relatively easy part. And now we move to the hard part. And mercifully, the curfews are still in place. Oh yes, you heard me right. Mercifully. Because the curfews are really a security issue. And as many Kenyans have noticed, crime has gone up. And we expect it to escalate even further in the weeks and months to come. Because it is human nature. That's what happens when you have so many desperate people around. But having said that, it is also true that this is also a time of unprecedented opportunities for those who can be able to stay positive despite all these problems and challenges. I am hoping to dedicate a lot of videos on this channel towards exactly that, encouraging Kenyans to see opportunities, encouraging Kenyans to deal with some very serious family problems that have been triggered by this crisis. Folks, all is not lost, but I would be telling you a lie if I didn't tell you to brace yourselves. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.